With that being said, what is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned into a very special edition of the HFWB podcast series. This is your host, Clifton Pope, and with me today, I have a very special gentleman who's basically the best way I could describe him as far as how quickly I've gotten to know him and how historical just his overall name is just within this community alone is. He's basically a man with solid experience in how legislator and state government works. And what do I mean by that? I mean, he is the son of former Congressman Solomon Ortiz, for those who are familiar here in the Corpus Christi, Texas neighborhood and stuff. I mean, he's already been like a leader of the Texas legislature, serving as deputy whip of the Texas House Democratic Caucus and treasurer of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. He's a former Nueces County Democratic Party chair. He's the current executive director of MAP Texas, which him and his father helped discover, which is basically a minority advanced placement project here in Texas. I mean, and he's also a partner in Ortiz Holding, a business development firm here in Texas. I can go on and on. If you don't know who I'm talking about by now, I want to welcome everybody, Mr. Solomon P Ortiz Jr. to the HFWB podcast series. Solomon, how is it going, my friend?
Clifton, it's going well, my friend. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thanks for the for the kind introduction. Sure. I appreciate the invite, and it's great to be on your show.
No, I mean, it just pays off, really. It's like I've been saying this lately for people who I've been bringing on to my HFWB podcast series, Solomon, that it pays off who you know, because we're basically connected all to the same individuals within the community. One particular person, and we talked about this when we met, was Breonna Davis. When I saw all the work that y'all were doing together and stuff, I'm like, well, I happen to know Breonna very well. She's a wonderful person with everything that she does within the community, and she seems to believe in this gentleman, Mr. Solomon P. Ortiz Jr., tremendously, along with a bunch of other people who I know. That kind of triggered, man, I got to get to know this guy. I got to get him on my podcast. I got to get the story and see what his experience is all about, because I'm very open-minded like that. And here we are. But enough of me rumbling. Solomon, for the people who are listening to the HFWB podcast series and who want to know a little bit more about your background story as far as your upbringing, your relationship with your father, so to speak, to where you currently are, kind of give the people a little bit of an idea of what that's about.
Yeah, no. So like you said, Solomon Ortiz Jr., I've been involved in politics and in the community in one form or another for as long as I can remember, since I was a little kid,
like genetics at this point.
Yeah. So I'll give you a good kind of a example of when I was a little kid, and then I'll lead into more as I've gotten older. But as a little kid, and I've actually, someone just reminded me about this on the campaign trail. My dad had his number, or our number to the house, published or in the phone book. I know we don't have phone books anymore.
Right.
For those younger folks watching, phone books, big old book that
you have every year yellow books house that everyone had in the house.
Yeah,
I feel like the last generation that remembers phone books.
Yeah, so it had basically everyone's name in town, and you can just look up the number and call them, as well as businesses and whatnot. So our number was always listed. People would call the house. I must have been 8, 10 years old. A young kid, middle school or elementary, and people would call the house and they would have issues for my father, or rather his office, or for him to try to address their needs. And these were federal issues because my dad was in Congress at the time, so Social Security, veterans benefits, just a laundry list of issues, and many times it was just folks that just needed kind of help pointing them in the right direction, where they could maybe get assistance. Maybe if it wasn't a federal issue, if it was a state issue or local issue. Mm-hmm. So I would answer the phone and literally take notes, because people would call and they would tell me their issue, their concerns. Mm-hmm. And I would take notes, and, my dad would come home, or I'd talk to someone from his office, I'd have the notes on a piece of paper, and I'd tell them, hey, so and so called the house. They have this issue. They have that issue. So since I was a little kid, basically, I've kind of grew up with like community service and involvement. And there's different ways that can manifest, different ways that take shape, right?
Yeah.
And then fast forwarding, until as I got a little older, went off to college, went to Texas A&M University in College Station, got my degree, moved back to Corpus, and then my sister, was working at CCISD at one of the schools, and said, we need the school I'm at needs a math, or rather a teacher, and there's an ESL class that they're looking for a teacher for, ESL, English as a second language. So I was like, oh man, that'd be great. I speak Spanish. I think it'd be fun. So I go and interview, and as the principal, I'll never forget, his principal's name was Mr. Montoya. He's reading, my like resume or college transcripts, and he's like, "Oh, I see your economics degree," and he's like, "We need a math teacher. I think I'd rather have you as the math teacher than the ESL teacher." And so I ended up being the math teacher. It was an amazing experience. I taught for probably over a year, and that's where I've really gotten my respect and for teachers and all they do. I tell folks, it was probably one of the hardest jobs, I've ever had. Teaching is not easy, but it was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding. I met a lot of interesting people, a lot of cool people. Actually, some of the students, I still, keep via social media, keep track and communicate with some of the students from, 20 years ago or so.
Relationships formed during the days.
It's just, you were talking earlier about how just a small world and networking and relationships, and it really, you really never know where these relationships can lead and what they can turn into. And so from there, I was in my early 20s, and then the party chair position. In Texas, we have Democratic Party chairs, Republican Party chairs, and they run by county. And then they're elected by the voters in the primary, and then you kind of become the head of the party, which has some administrative duties and political duties. Administratively, basically running the primary election, finding poll workers, staff, making sure they have all the stuff that you need to run an election. And granted, this was 20 something years ago, so that was back. And you're younger than I, Clifton, so you may not remember, but back when you would fill out the ballot, and then there was like a little Scantron, and you'd feed it into the machine to count the ballot.
Definitely before my time, without a doubt.
Yeah, see, man, you're too young. And that was the party chair position. It involved a bunch of different duties, but working with the precinct chairs. I did that for 2 terms. Each term was 2 years. It was a total of 4 years. And after that, I was like, I want to do something different, move on. I'm not going to seek re-election to that position. Well, literally like a month or 2 after that, Vilma Luna, which maybe some viewers may remember, back in the day, she was a state rep here in Corpus for a while. She announced her resignation from the legislature. So she had already been in the legislature, had already put her name in the ballot to run unopposed, no primary opponent, no Republican opponent, just basically a free pass to being reelected. But she ended up resigning after the primary. So then that created this whole administrative kind of process to fill the place on the ballot. Since she no longer was in office and she resigned, there had to be a system to then put another Democrat on the ballot to run in November. And then the Republicans had that same opportunity. I was the outgoing party chair. People came up and were like, hey man, like you should run for state rep. You should run for state rep. I was like, man, like, I don't know. But a lot of folks called, supported me, a lot of the precinct chairs. So I ended up precinct chairs voting to pick a person on the ballot. I got the nomination, and then I ran for state rep and won. And that was kind of how I got into the party chair job and the state rep job. And the rest has kind of been history. And I served. I got elected in a special election. Served until 2011. The Tea Party wave happened like in 2010 when all us Democrats kind of got wiped out, including my race, and pretty much everyone in Nueces County. It was a really tough political year for Democrats. And then I've been out of politics, right? Didn't necessarily see myself running for office again. I'm a lot grayer, than back then. In my mid 40s now, and then sure enough, Abel Odetto, the current incumbent state rep, announced that he's retiring. And so, it was kind of like deja vu, Clifton. Like it was like kind of like what happened the last time when Bill Maluna resigned. Like a lot of folks were like, "Hey, man, like you should think about running. You should think about running." And so, I thought about it. It took me about a good 2 weeks before I announced because I wanted to talk to friends, family. As you probably know, and running for office is not easy. It's a lot of work, and it's super expensive. Campaigns unfortunately cost a lot of money, and there's a lot of special interests. There's a lot of different groups. Everybody pulling at you in a whole bunch of
all the
different
activities
directions.
you have to be engaged in, making decisions with certain groups, forming certain relationships.
Yeah, no, exactly. Forming relationships.
The distribution of just not only just your overall status, but just the resources that you can provide based off of those status. And it's like you literally have the political gene down within you based off of not only what you've experienced, but also your father as well. And it's like, here we are, deja vu all over again. You're getting ready to run for state representative, kind of like how it was back in from 2006 to 2011.
Exactly.
Kind of describe like the parallel that you've noticed from back then to now, to where it's like the position opened up. Now it's pretty much mine for the taking if I want it, and how far I want to take it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, what's been interesting is, of course, there's a lot of the same players are still involved, right? There's been individuals who are the precinct chairs who've been precinct chairs for 20, 30 years. A lot of the activists, still involved. I remember, I'll give you a good example, Nancy Vera, the president of the local Corpus Christi AFT, American Federation of Teachers.
Nancy Vera, I had her on my podcast before.
She's great. She's super active, involved in everything, super aggressive. And she wasn't president of AFT back then, but she was super involved and up there in leadership. And now fast forward, Nancy's president of AFT, the local AFT. A lot of those folks again have elevated their own position and become or holding different positions of responsibility within the community. And then what's the other dynamic is there's a bunch of new people, right? As a matter of fact, you and I just recently met. There's a bunch of new people involved in the political process. And I would tend to say that a lot of these folks are a lot younger, Clifton, and you've probably seen it, as well. There's a big group of younger folks who have really become extremely politically engaged in these last few, 2-3 election cycles. We saw it on the last election cycle on city council, where they had a kind of a slate of candidates. We saw Jim Klein get elected off of that group, and Sylvia Campos. So you see this younger group really becoming super involved in politics and in campaigning and everything that goes along with elections. And it's really great to see. So it's
one person I want to mention within that exact class, as you mentioned, another particular individual who fits that mold tremendously, Armand Alex. Special shout out to him. Shout out to him as far as everything that he's doing with just, of course, the environmental work, the climate change, everything. People don't realize how engaged and how active he is alone within the city as far as just from a younger generation. And it inspires me because he's younger than me and he's over here. I feel like I see him taking the fight, the city council, if not every single week. And it's beautiful, like you alluded to, Solomon, to see just the younger generation just taking a stand really for what's right and what they believe in and what they feel will make a better overall community. We need more of it, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Do you feel like do you feel like there should be like a certain ground point to where the older generation and the youth should come together as one to where we can make it an overall more diverse kind of community, just for not only from an age perspective, but even just, regardless, race, religion,
Yeah.
whatever you want to say.
Well, I
Like,
think an interesting answer to your question is politics, right? Makes that happen.
yeah, it does.
You
It does.
see this kind of melting pot of younger, older people with different interests. Just as a interesting or fact tidbit for today,
Hmm.
January 23rd, today that we're recording. There's a big, as I was just watching it before we came on, City Hall today is voting on the desal, uh, moving forward with the project. That's the Inner Harbor desal project. That's basically the Hillcrest neighborhood project,
Right,
where
right.
I would say the vast majority of the community is against it. I publicly have come out against that project, as well as Armand and several of the other younger activists. I was
Mhm.
watching on City Hall. We had a former county judge, Barbara Canales, just spoke on public comment against it. Dr. Gully, who was a former port commissioner, super involved in the community as well, spoke out against it. So what's been interesting is that you have this mix of elected officials, former elected officials from different industry, different backgrounds, as well as a bunch of younger folks, college kids, just out of college, activists involved in these different organizations, all coming together to speak out and have their voice heard at City Hall about how they feel about this project, this desal project that, quite frankly, has a huge environmental cost to our community. Just on Sunday, we had the Environmental Democrats Forum, where we specifically talked about a lot of these issues dealing with the environment here in Corpus. And so, in terms of, back to your question about, like, these different groups and age groups, politics really makes that possible. Organizing, whether you're in the labor movement, union movement, that really makes it possible. And hey, this, Clifton, there's power in information and there's power in numbers.
Mhm.
And that's really what makes things happen and makes things go. And if you don't like what's happening in your community, speak up, get involved, go vote, go talk to your elected officials, go talk to your city council members, county
Yeah,
commissioners.
you
You'd be
just have to get out
surprised.
there and get involved and really
Yeah,
just
and a
be
lot of these
active.
people,
Like,
Clifton,
yeah.
are easy to talk to, right? I mean, they're, for the most part, they're accessible, right? Not all of them, but for the most part, they're accessible, and they want to hear from constituents.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a good friend of mine said, if you want to make a difference in your community, you need to get involved, like you said, talking to these elected officials, forming relationships with them, and at the same time, getting involved with certain organizations and nonprofits that are looking to make differences within the community as far as empowering it more by getting on those board of directors and stuff like that. And speaking of powerful nonprofits that are making a difference, this is one of the main things I caught from you, Solomon, that stood out to me as far as what you stand for the most is basically education and diversity. And especially for like the minority community and stuff like that, which is kind of like what your nonprofit that you're the executive director of, the Map of Texas, is about. Kind of touch on that a little bit for those who are
Yeah,
listening to the HFWB podcast series as far as the overall mission of what Map of Texas is, because a lot of people don't realize as far as how much work your nonprofit does as far as just for like schools and for the kids, taking them on field trips and stuff like that. Kind of elaborate on that a
yeah,
little bit
no,
more.
no, and thank you. I appreciate the time to talk about MAP. So, Map of Texas, we're a 501c3. MAP stands for Minority Advancement Project. We call it Map of Texas just because it's easier to remember and it's shorter to write. We've been around now since 2010 or 11, I think. We're going on our 13th year, and we're an
Congratulations
education
on
nonprofit.
that
Now,
and the
there's a
success,
bunch
without
of
a
different
doubt.
nonprofits in town, right? And ours, just to kind of distinguish kind of like what we do versus some of these others, is when we say we're an education nonprofit, what we specialize in is taking kids from all over town and particularly, economically disadvantaged younger kids. We have a middle school program and a high school program, and we take them on education related field trips, right? So you're like, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, we'll take kids to the high school program, for example. We take the high school kids, we'll take them to Austin. They tour the Capitol, they meet with their elected officials, they see, the proceedings going on the House floor, Senate floor. And then we feed them, we eat on the Capitol grounds, beautiful park grounds they have in front of the Capitol. And then after that, we do a walking tour of the University of Texas. The kids also meet with admissions counselors to learn about the application process, the admission process.
Give them that experience of what going to
Yeah,
visit.
and let them know about like the financial resources that are available. Because the fact is, like, a lot of times, a lot of their parents aren't necessarily engaged or involved, or maybe their school counselor hasn't really gotten into details in terms of applying for college or the process, right? And so that's what we do with the big kids. We take them out and we're like, look, there's a lot of world outside of Corpus. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's people that want to help. There's people that want to put you in the right direction, help you go in that right direction. So that's what we do in terms of the high school program. Now we have a middle school program, which is very similar, but we don't take them as far. We take them here around the community. For example, we'll take a bunch of middle school students. And mind you, all of this is free, Clifton. We don't charge a fee. There's no fee to the parents. There's no fee to the kids. We feed them. We transport them. We pay
resources. That's what
we pay the admissions cost, if anything, if there is an admissions cost. It's all free. Why? Because we want to expose these kids to opportunities and for them to see things that maybe they won't get to see in Corpus or South Texas. We want to expand their horizons, right? We want to let them know there's a lot of world out there and you can do it, and you have people that want to help. So with the middle school program, we've taken kids to the UT Marine Science Institute, which a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's out there in Port Aransas. It's a master's and PhD college campus, basically, for undergrad. And they do like marine biology type stuff. They study with animals, fish, birds. It's a very unique campus, very unique place. They have a boat called the Katy that goes out and dredges. And then you look at it through microscopes and see like what's in the water. So we take these middle school kids to that campus, and they get to go on the boat. And, Clifton, we asked the kids, we're like, hey, how many of y'all have ever been on a boat or been to the beach or to the water? Mind you, Clifton, these are kids here in Corpus, right? Here in the coastal bend where the beach is right there, right? The water's right there.
Walking distance.
2/3 of the kids, 90% of the kids never been on a boat, hadn't been to the beach. And these are kids from right here, and so, we just want to do our little part to kind of spark that interest in them. And so we do these trips. At the end of the trip, a lot of these kids, I can't tell you how many they tell you, hey, sir, you mean to tell me I can be a marine biologist? You mean to tell me I can be a scientist? And so like that's what we do with MAP, right? We take these kids on these trips. We've taken them, not just there, we've taken them to A&M Kingsville. They have a serpentarium there, which they do research on venomous snakes to create the anti-venom if you ever get bit. So there's a lot of unique stuff we have here. They have the Clayburgh Wildlife Institute where they do research on like deer and animals, and the kids got to hold a baby alligator. I got to touch a baby alligator. I never thought I'd get to do that in my life. So these are all just cool and unique experiences that we take these kids on, and the whole goal is to spark interest in them to pursue more education, right? To let them know like, hey, you can go to college. There's opportunities for you, outside of Corpus. There's a lot of world out there. We want to be a small part of helping you realize that and experience that. And in a nutshell, that's what we do with Matt.
No, that's wonderful. And it's like you're giving all the kids, Solomon, the opportunity just again to be rich in information, knowledge, and resources out there to where they can, of course, they could benefit off of it just by realizing that they have the options to pick and choose what it is that they want to do with their life.
That's
as far as what direction they want to go into, as far as any career opportunities, job opportunities, educational opportunities as far as colleges and stuff, because everybody wants to be rich. And the reason why everybody wants to be rich, it's not really about the money, Solomon. I mean, as you know, it's really more just about just having options to choose from. That's what makes the rich rich. They just have more options to choose from versus the poor. They're limited to like one option, if they're lucky, maybe two at best. But overall, the next question I have for you is based on your overall journey within the campaign and everything and stuff. From your own eyes, what do you feel like is the political landscape for 2024 and beyond for yourself? And to make this a two-part question, what is your mission if you are elected state representative once again?
Yeah. So the political landscape overall, I think we're seeing a lot more engagement and a lot more involvement from all aspects, all age groups in the Coastal Bend and Corpus Christi. Like we touched on earlier, there's a lot of things happening where there's just a lot of interest and enthusiasm. So I think we're going to have a high voter turnout. Obviously, it's a presidential year as well, so the turnout will be even higher. Now, federal politics, that's a whole nother animal with Trump. Look, today is the New Hampshire Republican primary vote. And so we'll see how he does. It's just him and Nikki Haley now. On the national level, I think things are a little more complex. We have Biden running on the Democratic ticket. Looks like Trump's going to be his opponent again in the Republican side. And so I think the national politics presidential race, I think it's going to get very heated, obviously. So that's going to get hot. A lot of that also then works its way down, into state politics. I think here locally, we have a lot of races, whether it's constables, JPs, county commissioners, state rep, judges. Just drive around town, you see everyone's signs all over the city.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of energy, a lot of excitement in terms of just the general political process, electoral process. Now, as far as my race and kind of my goals and what I want to do or hope to do being elected, by the community is, I want to be the accessible elected official that you can call me directly, call my office to get things done for the individuals of this community and to advance economic opportunity for everyone, no matter what part of town you live in, no matter what green, blue, yellow, orange, doesn't matter. I want to be an individual who uplifts this community and who provides information. A lot of times there's a lot of things going on in the city, right? A lot of times, and people aren't aware of what's happening. People aren't aware of the issues that are facing them that, quite frankly, can impact your life in one way or another. And so I've always prided myself on being, a pretty good communicator and being accessible. I use a lot of, social media or, on the campaign now, I've been doing little videos. I've been doing all kinds of little segments just to inform people on what we're doing, what we're working on. And so I want to be that elected official that you can go to find answers to your problems, or at least get pointed in the right direction where you can find those answers, because I want to be able to be a resource to help people, Clifton, really in a nutshell.
And you basically just answered all the questions and proved all of my points exactly on why it is that you are pretty much the person that you are, based on what my original thoughts are when I first came across you, Solomon, because you said it yourself. You want to be the most accessible person you can to help uplift and empower the community. I mean, whenever I first reached out to you, you responded back rather quickly, exchanged numbers, we met, and then here we are doing this podcast interview, and here we are on the same page, just trying to do all we can just to make the community a better place, along with our network of friends that we're all connected to, and just all coming together really just to make a difference. Now, Solomon, we're actually at the point of my podcast where I'm going to ask you basically a list of questions. So I ask everybody who come on the podcast, just for the people to get to know you, of course, a little bit more. First question is this: what is the first thing you do or think of every single day that you wake up?
First thing I do wake up in the morning is just thank the good Lord for giving me another day, and
Right.
I make myself a little cup of coffee and just kind of start to plan out and think about, what task and what I have going on in the day to try to figure out how can I be as productive as I can for today.
I love
Sometimes
it.
it's tough, you know how it goes. Sometimes it's tough.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank the Lord for seeing another day, and now time to attack the to-do list one thing
Amen.
at a time, one step at a time. I agree. Now, here on the HFWB podcast series, one of the favorite sayings is health is wealth, because they really kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of two sides of the coin, that type of thing. In your own eyes and your personal definition, Solomon, what does health and wealth mean to you?
Well, I think I don't think that's a short answer per se, but I think health it takes shape in various forms. Obviously, it means your individual health. How's your blood pressure? How's
Sure.
your specific vitals of the day? But I think health is a bigger thing, right? I think it also
Yes.
encompasses community health, the loved one's health, mental health. I think
Mhm.
that's something that we don't talk about enough. Is health isn't just, oh, my arm is broken or I have a
Mhm.
bad shoulder. It's mental health as well, and I
It's the
think that's something
mind-body
that we don't. Yeah, that's something that we don't talk about enough, Clifton. It really is. That's how I view health. I think it's a larger, a larger spectrum, not just, aches and pains. I think there's a lot more that goes into health. The community obviously plays a big part in the health of the community, right?
Mhm.
In terms of wealth, uh, same thing. I don't necessarily see it as you open your bank account and you see how many zeros or dollars you have
Right, right,
in
right.
your account. I think wealth is uh, information. We talk about how information is power.
Yeah.
Wealth is having the ability to address issues that are important. Having a wealth of information. It's not just financial. Having wealth can also mean service to others. I think that a lot of times uh, people think like, oh, well, I don't have money to donate to this cause or to donate to this nonprofit. It's not about just money. It's not about just the material things. A lot of times, a lot of these nonprofits, for example, Brianna Davis, our mutual friend,
Mhm.
they just need support and help. They just need somebody to
Yeah,
show up to volunteer,
for
to sort,
sure.
products. They, as Clifton, they've got, hygiene products, Pampers, deodorants, toothbrush. A lot of times they just need the manpower or the help, so that's how I interpret, wealth. Can you give back to the community, not necessarily monetarily, but with yourself, with your time, with your energy?
For sure. And that's how you'll continue to unite people within the community. And that's how people will continue to look to you really as kind of like a leader, as far as someone they could look up to, as far as being like a guide in that setting example, primary example, I might add. Speaking of leaders, in your eyes, Solomon, what defines a great leader to you?
You know, and that's a really good question. I think someone who listens, Clifton. I
Mm,
really think a listener
that's a great point. I love that.
is, to me, a if not one of the more important aspects of a quote unquote leader. If you want to help people, if you want to address needs and concerns and wants, the only way you're going to be able to do that is to listen and get the input from the community, get the
Right,
input from the individual
right.
that needs that help or that's looking for that help. So, like, I've always found that being able to listen, being able to think before you speak and digest that information. To me, I think that's one of the more important aspects of leadership.
It's just how you continue to remain effective, Solomon. And it's like you seek to understand, then to be understood, and you listen to hear them out and get a sense of how they feel versus listening just to respond to the direct words that are coming out of their mouth. That's a really, really big difference. And that's a thin line that a lot of people don't know how to walk, without a doubt. But we're going to actually transition to another segment I like to call either
Sure.
or, where I'm basically going to ask you which one you would choose out of the ones and stuff like that. My first one is this, Solomon. Would you rather choose loyalty or respect?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. Oh man, I would say respect.
Mm,
Just because loyalty, loyalty comes in different forms, right? Loyalty can come from being a family member, being a loved one,
yeah.
financially. You're loyal to something because maybe it pays your bills, or maybe you make money off of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's different, say, than respect. To me, if you have respect of your community, or say you're running for office and respect of your voters, I think respect is earned. And so once you've kind of earned that respect, you know, I find that to be a better, a better quality, or what I would prefer from the two.
No, that's a very great point, without a doubt. Would you rather live in space or live in the ocean?
Oh man, probably the ocean. I'm a big. I love like sea life. I'm a big. I'm a big seafood eater. I love to eat a bunch of
You
seafood.
just blend into the ocean
Oh
naturally.
man, so like
I
I
can
would be
see
right at
that.
home with all the crustaceans and creatures and shrimp and crab and fish. I'd love it, and I think the ocean is so vast, and there's so much more exploring that needs to be done in the ocean. So to me, I think I'd rather live in the ocean.
Would you rather be famous and poor or anonymous and rich?
Oh man, there's something about anonymity that mind you, I've been in politics my whole life, right? So like I've been kind of out in involved in some form or fashion. So
Right, right.
I think there's a lot to be said, at least for me personally. Anonymity. Uh, obviously, hey man, yeah, of course, give me some cash and be rich. That'd be great too. But I think I value, or having been in politics for so long, is there's something to be said about anonymity and just kind of being lost in the numbers, being lost in the crowd. I think there's something unique about that. So yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. Would you rather have unlimited free meals at your favorite restaurant, or would you rather have unlimited first class tickets?
Oh man, I'm a foodie. I love to eat, so unlimited free meals, man, all day long.
Got you. Got you. Would you rather dance to every song or sing to every song, Solomon?
Probably sing, because I'm a horrible dancer. You don't want to see me dance. I have no sense
I
of
respect the
rhythm.
honesty there
I
on
have
that.
really no sense of rhythm,
It's
unfortunately.
it's it's
But
all
I do
good.
love to
At
sing.
least
And one,
you're aware of that, Solomon. A lot
oh
of
man,
people still
and I
dance
tell
and
you,
they're not even aware of that. So that
I'm
at
a
least
horrible dancer. Yeah, no sense of rhythm. But one thing that I do love is I love to listen to lyrics of songs. So like I love like to hear the meaning, or the storyline, or the story
mm,
that a song tells. So I really love music, and so I would love to sing to every song if I could.
let's test your love in music, Solomon.
Oh no.
Picture yourself on an island, right? And you're trapped on this island, and you can only listen to five of your favorite music artists. It doesn't matter what genre it is, it could be their whole catalog of music. Who would those five artists be?
Oh man. Off the top of my head, it'd be, I don't know if I could think of the exact artist, but my musical genre, or what I love, like if you were to see my like Spotify or podcast, or it ranges from like Spanish mariachi to rap to old school 90s. When I was in high
Yeah,
school,
you can
rap.
pick five artists out of any of those genres,
Oh
Solomon.
man,
It's
so Spanish. Good old Vicente Fernandez. You can't go wrong with him. If folks don't know who he is, he's a legendary mariachi singer, Mexican mariachi singer. Definitely, I could listen to Vicente or Chente all day long. Um,
one.
Gosh, man, in terms of, you know, uh, man, you know what album I was listening to the other day that was really good were the Fugees.
Hmm.
That was a great album with like Lauryn Hill,
Mm.
some great songs.
I'll count that as one. The Fugees. Okay.
You know, you know who
Fugees.
else I like too, and this is granted maybe a little harder edge music, but good hometown boys from Houston, Ghetto Boys. Man, they've got some great songs, man.
Hey,
Bushwick
you
Bill,
can never go wrong with the
Scarface.
Ghetto Boys. Scarface and the Ghetto
Oh
Boys.
man,
I
I mean,
grew up
you
on
know,
that.
great. Man, those guys have a ton of great albums. Um,
Got
Man,
two.
even my political genre or musical genre, you know, another growing up in South Texas, George Strait. You can't go
Mm.
wrong with George Strait, the king of country music. I could probably sing word for word, probably 90% of George Strait songs. I just grew up as a kid listening to a lot of country music.
Okay.
So where are we at? Four?
We got one
Oh
more,
man,
Solomon.
come on,
Not
Clifton.
a bad playlist though.
Come
Very
on, Clifton.
versatile.
I might have to open up my. Oh, there's this one artist that over the last couple of years I've fallen completely in love with. Her name is Natalia Lafourcade. She's a singer from Mexico.
Mm.
If more Mexican, singer per se, not so much in the American charts, but her name is Natalia Lafourcade. Look her up on Spotify. She has just a beautiful voice, and it goes back to what I was telling you about the lyrics and storytelling.
I
All
love
her
her.
songs, she writes her own songs, and I really like musical artists that write their own song. So, like, I feel like when you hear her singing, you can feel the emotion in her words and in her
You can feel the
storytelling.
pain that she went through during that
Oh, big
experience.
time, man. So, yeah, any viewers out there like Spanish, the lyric music, Spanish, where Natalia Lafourcade, mm, for sure.
And I know
That's a
you mentioned.
very strange. People are going to be like, man, that's a real crazy playlist.
No, I've heard crazier playlists, Solomon. So no worries on that. So you're completely fine in that regard. Now I
I
know
love
you
that.
mentioned that you are a foodie, so I have to ask you, what is your favorite go-to meal of all time?
Oh, I could eat anything that is seafood, especially shrimp. Anything.
Mm,
I can eat grilled shrimp, blackened shrimp, fried shrimp. I almost sound like
shrimp, okay.
Forrest Gump, like like I mean, I could eat
Oh man,
any kind of shrimp,
you would have fit in
or
perfectly in that movie
like
with shrimp
scallops,
and everything.
crab. I mean, any like when you go to those restaurants, I think they have at that surfing crab where they just give you that big old bag of like
Oh
steamed
yeah, the
crab
shrimp
legs and
boil
crawfish
with
and
the
shrimp
shrimp,
and
crawfish, and
corn and
potatoes and
potato.
corn in it. Yep.
Oh yeah, I could eat any kind of seafood dish, specifically on the more shrimp crab side of the seafood menu.
Got you. Now, picture a place like this. Where is your favorite place, Solomon, I should say, that you've traveled to thus far, and where's a place that you would like to travel to that you've never been yet?
Man, it's funny you say where your last question first, where I've never been. I've been looking at a lot on Japan. Never been to Japan. I was watching an old Anthony Bourdain, one of the No Reservations, or I forget which one
The
of his shows in
documentary
Japan.
stuff. Okay.
I've never been. I would love to go to Japan. As far as one of my favorite places, and this may be a little different or controversial, but I love Las Vegas. I love to gamble, and I love like all the food that they have. Right, like
Yes,
they have all kinds of random restaurants from all over the world in Vegas,
they really
and I love
do.
to gamble, and I love to bet on like sports. And so like you know, friends of mine, we usually take like a guys trip, and we'll go to Vegas, and all we'll do is just go to the sports book and just bet on a bunch of like whatever season it
Yeah.
is, football season or baseball or basketball season or March Madness. Um, I love to
I'm with
gamble. I
you as
love to
far as
gamble on sports.
yeah, I'm with you with Vegas being one of my favorite places. I was just in Vegas last
Oh
month, as I
yeah,
was
that's right.
telling
You were
you
in
a
Vegas
while
for the
back.
Christmas holidays or something around there, right?
Yeah, I went there during the holidays, and it was fun. And they have a bunch of wonderful restaurants. It could definitely be the best time of your life, or it could be the worst time of your
Yeah,
life.
you
That's
can come
one
back
thing
home with
about Vegas.
nothing in your pockets, and that's the thing. Like as far as the table gambling, not so much. I'll just I'll know my limit with the sports book because I'll be like, I'm betting X dollars on this game or this,
Yeah.
and so like I'll just place all the bets, and then the rest of the day I'm just looking at my little sheet and being like, oh hey, this team is up or this team is down. So,
I love
but yeah,
it.
no, Vegas is it cuts both ways, right? Like you
It
love it
is.
or hate it, and come home broke or come home with extra pocket money in your pocket.
Yeah, it definitely paid off for me because you had to take care of some bills and
Did you?
Vegas.
Oh, so you
For
hit some. You
that.
hit some. You
So
made
that's
some money.
what's
You
up.
hit some. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Now, Solomon, you're extremely busy, excuse me, with everything that you have currently going on right now. When you have a moment to just take a step back and relax a little bit, what are some of your favorite hobbies that you like to do that many people may not know you like to do?
I'm a big podcast listener, so
Okay.
I listen like when I have like downtime, or I listen to. Man, I mean, if you could see, I'll try to open up my podcast here, but I have a bunch of NPR stuff I listen to, a bunch of here, give me 1 second and I'll open it up. I mean, I've got just all kinds of fresh air, it's been a minute, TED Talks, Up First, Cabinet of Curiosities, that's a really cool one. Radio Ambulante, Life Kit. Oh man, I mean, it's just look at all these podcasts I have. I mean, so
For
I
those
love to
who are
listen.
listening to the audio version and not watching it on YouTube, Solomon just pulled up his phone and showed me a list of all the podcasts that he's currently listening to, which speak to him as far as just constantly being educated, even within his hobby, as far as listening to podcasts and stuff. And I'm the exact same way, Solomon.
Oh, there's
I
so
like
right.
listening. I'm listening to podcasts almost as much as I listen to music these days. I'll be in the
And
gym listening to
there's so
podcasts.
much good stuff.
It
There's so
is.
much good
It is.
content. So yeah, I mean, so
Information,
yeah, on my
baby.
downtime, yeah, especially towards the end of the evening, I actually go to sleep listening to podcasts. Actually,
So do I. I do that at
yeah,
least probably twice a week
I
myself.
used to go to sleep. I don't know about you, watching TV. Oh man, I'd never sleep because then I'd be one more episode, one more episode. So a couple
Yeah,
years back,
I
I
get out of
switched
that
to
habit.
podcast. Oh man, I fall asleep within 20 minutes. Not only that, you're actually learning some stuff, while you're laying there. So, but yeah, big
Exactly.
big podcast fan.
Without a doubt. I love it. I'm the same way here for sure. And also, my last question for you, Solomon, as we wrap everything up, picture the opportunity to go back in time, right, and talk to yourself about 10 years ago. What would you tell yourself in that exact moment? And at the same time, where do you picture yourself in the next 10 years?
Gosh, man, 10 years ago, I would just tell myself that just keep pushing forward. Embrace loved ones that you just never know how short our time is. As far as 10 years ago, and as far as moving forward, God willing, with the support of the community, I see myself in office, God willing, and like I touched on earlier, being a resource to people. Uh, going back to when we first started the podcast, Clifton, about like the phone book and my dad, having this number published. I really grew up in a different kind of style of politics compared to what it is now. You turn the TV on now and it's super violent and conspiracy driven, and it just seemed like a simpler time, back when I was a little
Oh
kid and
man, you're
answering,
telling me.
right, and just answering phone calls for my dad when people would call the house. It was a very different time, but I just always remember, going with my dad and being at HEB or something, and random people, even till this day, random people be like, hey, you helped me with this, VA issue, or you helped me with this Social Security, or I had this immigration issue. Till this day, and it still happens when people stop my dad, and when as a little kid it would happen all the time, and so that to me kind of instilled a sense of service, a sense of being helpful, and that's something that I've never forgotten, and that I just always remember. And to me, if I can be of help, I want to be of help. I think I want to be in a position, like I said earlier, to help people and be part of the community and to do good, for the community. And hopefully that's where I'm at in the near future and as far as long term.
My gut feeling is telling me that's exactly where you're going to be at, because I can just tell that you're a man on a mission, Solomon. And I feel like it's going to be another deja vu type of experience based on what we've been talking about. So for if anyone wants to get a little bit more as far as your story, as far as like get an idea of where they can go to maybe vote on the campaign trail, of course, your website, social media handles, now's the time to give it all out, Solomon.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, Clifton, thank you for the time. For more info on the campaign, SolomonOrtizJr.com. Same thing on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Solomon Ortiz Jr. SolomonOrtizJr. Campaign number is 361-631-0006. You can email us as well as ortizfortexas@gmail, or through the website as well. You can send us a message. If you're looking for a campaign sign, if you're looking to speak at an event, just like Clifton, you invited me to speak here today. Thank you so much. I'm happy to speak at any other groups as well. And so that's how you can find me.
A man for the people, Mr. Solomon P Ortiz Jr. here on the HFWB podcast series. And if anything, there's one thing that me and Solomon could agree on. You just got to take it back to the basics when it comes really to politics, and get back to just a group of like-minded individuals coming together to just make decisions so we can just live together in peace, love, and positive vibrations. We need to get back to that, which is why you need to go out and vote, number one. And number two, you need to go vote for Solomon P. Ortiz Jr. That way he can continue to make a difference within the community and continue the legacy, not only that is pretty much his father started, and now traveling through him, to where he can just continue to just spread that message of just continuing to educate the community and create a more diverse community. That's what we need more of in 2024 and beyond. With that being said, Solomon, just thank you so much for just making time out of your busy schedule to simply bless us with an appearance on the HFWB podcast series. Truly honored for this conversation, my friend.
Clifton, and thank you. I know you have coming up in February as well. I'm sure you'll probably talk about it on a future episode. You've got your little Healthy Heart, was it, the conference coming up?
Healthy Heart Festival, yes.
That's
for those
right.
Who are listening, it'll be on February the 13th. And for those who are listening after that date, it was a great festival, second annual.
Yeah, no, so I'm looking forward to being there as well. Keep doing all that you're doing, Clifton. You're doing amazing work in the community. Information is power, so thank you for inviting me on your show to talk about the campaign as well as relevant issues. So thank you again. Keep up all the great work you're doing, Clifton.
I appreciate that, Solomon. And for those, once again, this is yours truly, Clifton Pope, here at the HFWB podcast series, where information is the new money, y'all. Stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed. Till next time, peace and love.